Hey guys, good morning. We are starting a new section, so get ready, my little chicken cutlets. We have to work on percentages now, and percentages are actually pretty fun and really not too difficult. You just have to follow certain steps, just like everything else. If we work through the steps, then we will always be more successful than if we try and find shortcuts and stuff. So let's be very careful. Make sure we take really good notes. You should have your notes book open to the next available clean page. And we're going to get started. So go ahead and write your header of percentages up at the top. And we're going to break it down a little bit. We're going to take it in steps. So the first part of percentages I want to talk to you about is, what does a percent mean? What is a percent? So we can find the definition of percent by actually breaking down the word percent. So let's look at the word percent. Okay, so if we break that word down, we get two parts. We get per, and then we get cent. Okay, so per. I want you to think about when we've used per. We've used per before in one of our units. I think if you'll remember, I should be correct in saying it was our unit rate section. And if you try and recall that prior knowledge, try and pull that information back in. Because remember, I said just because we learn it and we finish the unit doesn't mean we're done. We're always going to bring stuff forward with us as we move forward. So think back to that unit. What did we talk about the per meaning? Okay, so per, hopefully you're remembering it, is like each. For each. Every time you say, like if you say miles per hour, so how many miles you can travel each hour. Okay, so per is each. Okay, well now look at the second part of that word. The second part of the word is cent. All right, again, this is one of those ones, like if you think back to like fourth and third, I feel like you should have some prior knowledge of what cent means. You can also try and think of other words that might sound similar to cent. So for instance, you might think of a penny as a cent, or you might think of a centipede, or you might think of a century. So what do all of those have in common? A cent, a centipede, a century. They all have something in common because they have that cent beginning. And hopefully you're remembering that it is 100. So there are 100 cents in a dollar. There are 100 years in a century. There are 100 legs on a centipede. That just made me creep out. I don't like centipedes. Or millipedes. Okay, so cent means 100. So when we talk about percents, we're talking about for each 100, okay? And we'll dive a little deeper into that as we go on. But let's start taking a look. Okay, so a percent is kind of like a fraction. Actually, I should say it is a fraction. It's just a different way of writing a fraction. And so when I think of it as a fraction, I think of, okay, well, so if it's each 100, the 100 would be on the bottom, and then some number would be up top. So whatever the percent is would be up top. Okay? So your numerator would be the percent of the denominator, which is 100. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about how do we write a percent. And we're going to first dive into how to convert a decimal to a percent. Okay, so I'm sure I just blew your mind because you're like, wait a second. You just said fraction, and now we're going to talk about decimals. But remember, I did tell you that decimals were also like fractions, okay? So it all ties together. We're going to work with decimals, fractions, and percents in these next few days, okay? But we're going to start with decimals and percents. So converting decimals and percents. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little way to remember how to do this. And it's all about the decimal, okay? So people call it a method. It's really just a memory tool, but we'll call it using the Dr. Pepper method. Which, by the way, is one of my favorite sodas. I also like Mellow Yellow. I don't know if I have any other Mellow Yellow fans. Y'all can let me know later, okay? All right, so using the Dr. Pepper method. So, with the Dr. Pepper method, I have two digits after my decimal. And that means I need to convert a decimal to a percent. I move it 2 times to the right, which means I take it from here to here. Okay. And I can do the same thing to go the other way, from a percent to a decimal. And so in that situation, my decimal might be here, and a percent to a decimal, move 2 times to the left. I know y'all saw that coming. So I go from here to here. Okay, so let's practice a couple together and see if we can figure that out. Okay, all right. So let's go with A is going to be 0.52. B is going to be 0.07, and C is going to be 0.005. Okay, so all of these are decimals, and we're going to practice by moving them to change them to a percent. We're going to convert them to a percent. Okay, so up in my Dr. Pepper method, I said if you're starting with a decimal, you're going to move your decimal. You're going to move your decimal 2 times to the right. Okay. So if I move this decimal 2 times to the right, I go 1, 2. So that means my percent is 52 2. And I'm not sure if you guys remember how to make a percent sign, but it's a kind of circle with a little squiggly dash and then another circle. And this is one of the reasons why, remember when I told you don't write your division slanted anymore, because once we start using percents, we're going to see that slanted percent, and that could confuse us when we're doing division and percents, okay? So just be careful about how you write your percents and your division. Remember that you don't have to write this down. I'm just going to write it in my sidebar. Remember that your division should be top and bottom, okay? And your percent should be diagonal, okay? And that will help you keep them straight so you don't get confused, okay? Okay, so our second one, again, we're going to move our decimal 2 times to the right. And when I do that, 1, 2, that's my new decimal. Now, think about something. If I now moved my decimal over here, do I need all these zeros in front of it? No, because now I have a whole number, and I don't have to include zeros in front of whole numbers. Only in front of decimals, right? So, 7%. And then for my last one, I have 0.005%. Not percent, just 0.005. Okay, and so once again, I'm going to move my decimal 2 times to the right. 1, 2. Okay, well, this one's a little tricky because my decimal is still in front of the number, in front of the whole number, and there's still like a part, like there's no number in front, there's no whole number. So if my decimal is 0.5 now, that is my percent, but do I need to include a 0 at the front? I do, because I don't have a whole number, I have a part of a number. Okay, so remember, this is not 50, like 0.5 as in 50%. It's 0.5 as in half of 1%. Okay, because there's no whole number. Okay, all right, let's look at converting percents to decimals. So now we're going to look at D, E, and F. So for D, let's do 24%. For B, for E, let's do 3%. And for F, let's do 0.7%. Okay. Remember, if I follow my Dr. Pepper rules that I wrote, then to go from a percent to a decimal, I'm now moving my decimal to the left. Okay, well, I don't have a decimal in this number, but if I don't have a decimal, that means it's a whole number, right? So I know that the decimal is technically behind the number. So then if I move it 2 times to the left, 1, 2, now my decimal is here. So that means I have 0.24. Next one. Again, I don't have a decimal in my number, which means it's a whole number. So I put my decimal behind it, and I'm going to move my decimal 2 times to the left, and I'm going to go 1, 2. Well, I don't have a number here, so what does that tell me I need to do? I need to fill it in and put a 0, right? So now my decimal is 0.03. All right, last one. I have 0.7. So I do have a decimal in this number. So now I know it's not a whole number. There's no whole number there. but I still have to move to the left twice. So I've got to go 1, 2. I know that that means I have to add a 0 in front of my number, and my decimal now becomes 0.007. Okay, so this might be a little bit tricky for you just at the start until you get some practice, and that's why I have a practice ready for you guys to go work on. So go work in your practice activity. Remember to read each question carefully, because some will have you convert a decimal, some will have you convert a percent, and there's one or two where it might just ask you a different kind of question. So make sure you're reading the questions carefully. And hey, go check out that vocabulary video, because I mean, I like them. They're pretty jamming for math. Have a great day, guys, and keep practicing.